You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode number 72.
A podcast uncovering identity, color, and love, where driving yourself crazy is totally sane and curable. Now your host, T. Vias.
And so I'm continuing this series on time management, and today it's about controlling your time. And we often can think that we don't have control over our time because we think somebody else determines how our day is going to be. And this comes up a lot with my clients who have dependents, children, or they are teachers and they have students, or even the fact that your boss controls your time. Your boss is going to dictate how your day is going to go. And so then we think we don't have control over our time. And the funny thing about thinking that you don't have control over your time, no matter what your situation is that when you automatically think you don't have control, your brain is going to focus exactly where you don't have control. And I think most of us know this, where we don't have control is we don't have control over anything external from us. And so we can't control other people. Although I would like to think that I do, but sometimes no. It never works, and it's so exhausting. So we can't control our children, our manager, etc. And this comes up in a really subtle way, I think. We often think, well, if I had a less demanding boss, or if my children were well behaved, or if my husband did this, then we could manage our time so much better. And that is a very tricky way that we are trying to get to change somebody else, because we're thinking if somebody else changed, then the solution, our time problem, would be solved and we would control our time and our day. We'd be able to control our day. It's so subtle, but the solution doesn't lie with the other person in gaining back control of your time. And usually why this comes up of not feeling in control, especially in these situations where there's dependence or a demanding colleague or manager that you're working with, is that it's because they're making maybe demands. And they're making demands that you don't think that they should be making, or they're making demands that are unexpected. So basically, they're behaving how you don't think that they should be behaving. And then therefore you want to change the fact that they're making these demands or requests. So whenever you're thinking that you don't have control, and this could be in anything, not just control over your time, but when you don't have control, maybe after hearing this, you'll realize that the next time you kind of catch yourself thinking that, it's like, oh, my brain is wanting me to focus there. That's what my brain is offering me, this old kind of familiar way of looking at my time. And know that that's where your perspective and your focus is going to be. And here's maybe how you can shift it. So when your brain is thinking you don't have control, go back to where is it that you have control? And so really you have kind of three categories of where you have control, in particular with your time. And the first is where you decide to say no. And that is in relation to limits and boundaries. And I've talked about a lot about boundaries before in various episodes. And saying no is always available to us. And we often think that no is not an option. It is, most of the time, it is an option. If you're not being forced to be doing something, then no is an option. But we may not want to choose to say no. And that's the big difference. So for example, I had a job and my manager would give me extra work. And I didn't say no. And I said it out. I didn't say no because I was fearful of not getting promoted. And even in some degree, even fearful of getting fired. And know that that's okay. That no is available to you, and you may not want to choose no in certain situations. And you may want to choose no in certain situations, like saying no to your children or something like that. And the second category that's available to us in controlling our time is when we're dealing with anyone that's making demands or requests of our time. We can then go back and make a request of that person. We can request that our children stop asking for a snack every 20 minutes or something like that. Or we can also go to our manager and say, hey, I need to relook at my projects and my time and change the expectations that are in your job. We can go make requests to change policies and things like that. So that is something that is available to us where we can exercise our control. And when we make those requests, someone might say no. Like, for example, if you want to make a request at work to redelegate your time or something like that, you can go back and maybe reformulate that and keep doing that until an expectation has been changed. So for the times that we don't want to say no and set a boundary, and for the times that we don't want to make a request to somebody else to change an expectation or to change a behavior, we have a third option available to us. And that option is ownership. And basically, ownership means that we recognize that we chose not to say no for whatever reasons that we had, and that is perfectly okay. And we chose not to make a request for a change for, again, whatever reasons we had, and that is perfectly okay. And we accept that those two options were not exercised, and so now we own the situation, which means we move closer to acceptance of the situation. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we often kind of want the other person to change. We think that they should be making less demands or not making that request. And so that kind of like, oh, it should be like this, kind of almost like this perfect way of our life happening as opposed to what is actually happening. And the way that I recommend that you can move closer to this kind of acceptance and then finally to ownership is that you take a second to observe what's happening. Observe how the other person is behaving out of curiosity and come from it in a kind of a more factual way. So let's say your boss makes requests every day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 hour before you're about to leave. And just say, okay, my boss makes this and this request, like let's say 3 requests about this project at 4 o'clock in the afternoon every day. Or my kid asks for snacks every 20 minutes for the first 4 hours in the morning. And so what you're doing is you're moving away from how you think that they should be behaving to how are they actually behaving? What is it that they're doing and what are the facts of it that they're doing? Like how many requests? What are the requests? At what time is the request? What day of the week are the requests coming in? And so when you start to accept what's actually happening in your life, 2 things are going to happen. One is you'll notice that most people are predictable, even kids. They're going to be predictable in their requests. And the second thing that's going to happen is you won't come from this place of I don't have control, which when you constantly think that, it feels very closed. But when you kind of open up to, okay, this is what's happening and more of an acceptance, it generates kind of an openness in you. And from this place of openness, you can find a lot of solutions that can help you gain control of your time. And I'm going to give you some examples of things that I've implemented in my life and things that my clients have implemented by coming from this place of, okay, this is actually what's happening and understanding that and then coming up with their own solutions. Because once I kind of throw out an idea, you'll definitely come up with your own wisdom to solve your own time situation. So my solution for my situation is that my kid will ask for a snack, especially in the morning, every 20 minutes. Or ask for so many things, toilet breaks, whatever. And to, cut this, fix this, and things like that. And what I do is if she's at home and there is a certain number of things that I need to get done, I add 15 minutes to every single task. I call it the kid cushion. So for example, let's say it takes me 10 minutes to shower and get dressed in the morning. I will make that in my agenda. I will make that 30 minutes. And a client of mine who deals with a lot of incoming stuff from customers and things like that is to block out periods throughout her day, and she'll handle those requests in chunks of time. So let's say like from 10 to 11, handle all customer emails and requests. And then again at like 1 to 2, and then again an hour before she leaves. So she's blocked off those times for all of those requests that she needs to handle. But instead of like periodically doing it, she's grouped them together. And then she has control over the time where she's not handling those customer demands. So she has her focus time. And so I'm going to wrap it up here by basically saying that when you look at actually what's happening, as opposed to how you think your time should be, that your brain will start to look for that solution, because that's the actual problem that's happening in your life. The fact that, you have to deal with so many emails, or a boss that makes a lot of requests in the afternoon, or a kid that comes every 20 minutes. That's what's happening. And your brain can solve what's happening. It can't solve for what it thinks that how you think your time should go. And so I'm going to wrap it up here, and I'll check back with you next week.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.